Hi, it's Snorgle. Welcome back to Exploring Minecraft. So this is where I just cruise around peaceful Minecraft, getting to know it a little better. When we discuss the topic, and today is going to be a little less structured. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about AI. Not in the terms you think, maybe slightly different terms. So if you listen to me about AI at all, you know, I'm not necessarily an AI hater. I'm not a fan of generative AI. I feel like generative AI is all frosting and no cake. And there's genuinely real issues with the amount of resources it takes up and all kinds of crazy things. But this is a little bit about the effect on creativity and AI. And very specifically I want to talk about, I've heard many people, so in the creative professions, I heard a long time ago, years and years ago, when generative AI first came out, like DALL-E and things like that, and I remember reading an article on how architects were the first to use this because they didn't have to start from a blank canvas, and I thought that's really interesting. And I know that architects in general, it's such an interesting field to me because it absolutely rides that line between like engineering and creativity. And I think for someone to be a really, really, really good architect, it takes a sort of double-sided brain person, you know? Someone with an ambidextrous brain. And I'd like to think I'm pretty right and left brain simultaneously. But thinking about this, that's seemingly, look at that. I just love exploring these things. That's seemingly innocent, right? It seems innocent. Seems innocent enough. You can start without a blank canvas, but I've been thinking about this lately. And in particular, I'm a formally trained musician. I used to be professional. I have a degree in music. I took music. I've taken piano lessons from the time I was in second grade. I have a degree in performance with an emphasis in composition. So I'm familiar with this, right? I'm familiar with starting with a blank canvas. Metaphorically, of course. And polar bear. And there's things that are interesting because I started thinking about this. And so one of the things I noticed is that, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that I used to be a professional musician. It's a very difficult lifestyle. You don't make much money. And it takes an enormous amount of dedication. I don't think people realize how much dedication it takes to be a musician at a high level. And I have so many of my friends in high school who were not professionals. They were good musicians in high school. But they weren't particularly good as an adult. Because, like, what makes a good 16-year-old, good high schooler musician, does not necessarily make a good professional musician. There's a level you have to sort of reach of mastery. But part of that is being inspired. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So I did a fair amount of composition when I was a musician. I would do arrangements for orchestras and big bands and chamber orchestras, probably mostly chamber orchestras, not a lot of full orchestra work for me, but I had done some arrangements and some compositions. And even though it's an art, it's look at all this ice and snow where I hate it. Even though it's an art, it's also a business. And so, you know, if you get a commission to do something, an arrangement of something or whatever, and they're going to play it somewhere, you have deadlines. You can't just sit around and wait for inspiration. And I always hear these friends of mine in high school who were not professors talk about, waiting for the right inspiration. And one of the things that struck me is when you get a degree in music, one of the things you have to do is learn how to inspire yourself. You can't wait for inspiration. You have to learn how to generate inspiration. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a skill. What's cold do I have? 44, I got plenty. It's a learned skill. And I feel like it's one of those, I feel it's a little bit like some of the Buddha stuff where they talk about, you know, everybody's path is unique. I can't tell you how to reach enlightenment because your path is different than everybody else's. Hey, a boat. And it's kind of like that, I feel like, a little bit. But I want to talk about this because I think, and I want to talk about this, the dangers I think that generative AI poses for this, because there's a lot to be said. I thought, to me, it looked a little bit like a pig butt. Not gonna lie. Okay, I believe leave the boat here. Why not? I think there's out of here. Okay. Oh wow, like that. Okay. There. Where are we going here? So there's a lot to be said for that. We're learning how to do that, and just because I think it affects other parts of your life as well. You know? Do you know what I'm saying? So things like being able to develop something that you want to creatively, right? This is nothing that I want. So get out of here. Oh, for Pete's sake. Gosh. My garb. There, okay. Whew. Okay, where are we going? This way. I think it's one of the reasons why I always kind of know what I want to do creatively is because I've learned how to inspire myself, and it's a learned skill, and I think it's one that every good professional musician has, and any professional artist, frankly. Sure, I'm not saying that there's not times when you don't have to manufacture inspiration. What I'm saying is that you can get to a level of creating inspiration on the fly when you need to, when it's required. And the better you get at it, the higher level that will be. So that sometimes you might be more inspired than others, but the work that you're producing, at least from an inspiration standpoint, is still going to be extremely high level, right? The worst you're going to do is very, very good. And that's important. And I see so many people now skipping that first step. And that's the idea with the architects where you don't start with the blank canvas. And I understand how that's attractive. And I understand how that concept is seductive because you can save a lot of time. But I think it's dangerous. What is that? What's a rabbit? I'm stupid. I just think it's a very, very from an artistic perspective, I think it's extremely dangerous. And I really fear for the what's going to happen to musicians and artists and designers when they don't develop that skill to inspire themselves. I'm very concerned about that because I think it's going to have a negative impact on art and society. I think that art is very important to society. There's a reason why we produced art since prehistory caveman times, right? It's a brainstem thing. It's who we are as a society. I don't think that there's anything that can kill me, but I don't want to get between a polar bear and their cubs because I think that's going to be a very bad time. So again, I understand the seductiveness of you could save a week, 2 weeks, and just have this AI create stuff for you. And then you can take it from there and then it's your work. And although I think that's true, I think it is your work. I sort of feel like that there's a designer who, Don Norman, and he's got a really fascinating background. He's got a background in psychology and computer science and design. And he was the designer of the original iPhone. And if you aren't aware of the original iPhone and why it was such an amazing technological achievement, from a technical and creative standpoint, let's go this way. I remember reading this super old case study from back in the time. Yeah, I guess we'll go over here and just kind of avoid that polar bear together. This is a super, super old case study. I don't know where I saw it. It was referenced somewhere, and it was referencing the original iPhone. And it was really interesting because they talked about how this is the only piece of new technology that came out in any time that anyone could think of, where they did this test where they would give an iPhone to somebody who'd never used a phone board. Typically, and at this point in time, this is 2008, right? So long time ago. And I think at that point it would typically be like geriatric people who had never used a cell phone before. They set it up for them and they gave it to them. And within 10 minutes, like 90% of the people were sending and receiving emails, like sending and receiving phone calls, sending and receiving text messages. Think about that. They didn't know how to use, probably weren't that good at using computers either, right? And yet within 10 minutes and no training, it was so intuitive that they could just immediately use it. That's amazing. iPhone, there's no technology just like that now. That time is gone. Yeah, for now. I'm not saying it couldn't happen again. I'm just saying that time is gone. I don't want this with me. Go away. So that's Don Norman. And I was ready. And Don Norman's like, he's in, I don't know, he's 80 or 90s now. Like he's an old man. But they were asking him about AI and his thoughts on it. And he said, his thoughts were, he said, he likes to use it as a way to iterate concepts. He likes to use it as a concept. And so like if you're working in a creative field, a lot of times, like I used to design games for advertising agencies, and I have this sip of water here. And when you concept something, they come up with something and they give you a brief and they say, here's the client and here's what we need to do. And we'd like a game to do this. Okay, great. And so I'd sit down and I'd just come up with concepts. Okay, about this. It's a they're trying to sell some pasta sauce. Well, how about this? Or how about that? We just come up with different concepts. I come up with different concepts for different games. And he says that when he designs now, he uses AI to help him concept and concepting because he feels like it comes up with really novel concepts for things that he can take and do something really interesting and different with. And now that's an interesting approach. He's not using AI to create anything. He's just having a conversation with it about this blank canvas and running his ideas across it and sharing what inspired him. Ooh, lava. Sharing what inspires him and having this conversation with AI about it. I think that's interesting. I'm not sure it's for me, but I think that's really interesting. And it's from somebody I think who would understand the actual, and does understand the actual dangers of generative AI from a creative standpoint. And I also feel like, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'll quote Markiplier, paraphrase Markiplier, I should say, not quote. I don't remember if it was, I think it was on one of his podcasts, maybe Distractable. And Markiplier said that he's not too concerned about creative AI taking over creative fields because what it produces is garbage and it's going to most likely always be garbage. And I think that's probably true. And the only people that are using it, and I think this is really a smart observation. The only people using it are the people who don't care about the output. And boy, does that nail it. And I think when we think about this from an inspiration standpoint, it gets interesting. Suddenly we have Don Norman, who's kind of using this in a completely different way than what everybody else is using it for, in a way that allows him to still start with the blank canvas, but utilize some of the strengths of AI. And so aside from generative AI, one of the things that AI is especially doing, just as a generalization, is making these correlations. We talked about this before, making these correlations that our brains can't make because we can't keep that much stuff in our head. And we can't consider that much stuff in our head. And the amount of people don't understand the amount of information that AI is trained on. So like ChatGPT, the amount of data that's trained on. So there are like, I think 60 3 million individual Wikipedia pages, like Wikipedia inputs, that's slightly less than 3% of all of the training for ChatGPT. Think about that. Slightly less than 3%. The enormity of the entirety of Wikipedia, that's an enormous amount of data to consider, right? And if we start thinking about that, I just think that's I haven't done that much, but I think that's a really interesting way to use it and not have the danger of this really important skill from an artistic standpoint. Let's make a bet here. I think it's a crucially important skill from an artistic standpoint. And it deeply concerns me that it might be going away, And so what can I do about it? Well, I mean, I'm just a Snorgle. Like, what do I know? But I do think that I can try to push this out there and at least attempt to make people maybe think about how they're using AI, because I know so many people just use it pretty lazily to do really straightforward stuff that they could do themselves. Like, for example, like there's some people who use it to I know some people who use it to like go through their inbox, their email inbox at work and summarize things for me, do whatever. And I'm thinking, it doesn't take that much time. Like, okay, if I had 5,000 emails to go through, maybe, but it just doesn't take that much time. It just doesn't. And they've done studies that have shown that people who use AI for that directly lose their cognitive facility that they have. Like, it's use it or lose it, right? But I think the thing that I find so intriguing about Don Norman's idea is that he's not giving us that cognitive ability. He's sort of taking what he already as a strength and then using this tool how it's kind of meant to be used, right? To come up with these weird, odd correlations that might make you go, oh, that's cool. That's really neat. I find that fascinating, and I find that an interesting topic. And so, if you're creative, I highly recommend. There's some artists. I have a friend of mine who's a really good graphic designer, and every October, there's I don't remember what it's called, but essentially it's on Instagram, and artists will draw something every single day, the entirety of October. And I followed a animator, a Dutch animator on YouTube, who would post a short animation every single day for a year. And I think that's really cool. I love that concept. Where am I going? This way? Yes. Good. I think that's a really fascinating concept. And I like that a lot. Because it kind of forces you, it makes you flex that inspiration muscle, right? You have to do it. You stick to it, you have to do it, right? It's like eating. Treat it like eating. When you want to do something, it's like working out. I work out a lot, and I just treat it like eating. I mean, I like working out. I like getting cardio. I like it. I find it meditative. But if I miss a workout, I have to make it up. Like if I'm sick or I just don't feel like doing it, I have to make it up. I have to make it up. Like it's just like, if you miss enough meals, you gotta get that caloric intake somewhere, right? Like you can't just not do it or you will die. And I think that with learning how to inspire yourself is the same way. You have to just do it. It's your brain. You're a creative person. And I believe most people are creative to a degree. Like most people are analytical to a degree. With different focuses and stuff, of course. Well, can you believe we've already gone 65,000 blocks? Isn't that crazy? So interesting. Anyway. I think that learning to flex that muscle by forcing yourself to do something is super important. Because I think you'll find it interacts with other sections of your life as well. Not just If you're painting, if you're drawing, or whatever you're doing, right? Producing YouTube videos. And I feel like there was a software developer, and I'm sorry, I completely forget his name. I should use an icon. And someone asked him about generative AI, and he was like, I don't think about it much, and I don't worry about it. And they were like, he basically was like, I don't particularly care for it, and I think it's boring. And I agree with that. I've talked about this before, that there's some really amazing things happening in AI, and none of it is in the generative AI space. All of it is the most dead boring stuff you can possibly imagine. There was this application that came out, I don't know, like an AI model came out, it was a while ago, maybe a year ago, that like drastically increased the doctors. What is there's a boat back there and a boat over there? What's going on? It drastically increased how accurately the doctors could predict, I think it was breast cancer. And it increased it like by a huge amount. And so it's not taking over what a doctor's doing. It's augmenting the doctor's strengths. And I think that's where the secret sauce lies. And it's not generative AI. It's just a model doing its thing. And so, I mean, what do we do about it? And I think back to what this man who's instrumental in basically creating computers and the internet. And he said, I wish I could think of his name, doggone it. Anyway, he said, airships were a thing, right? Blimps and Zeppelins were a thing. It was a booming industry until the Hindenburg disaster. And then it literally disappeared overnight. And he was equating that to generative AI. And I think that's a really powerful message, and I think it's probably right. I'll be honest with you. It's just going to take one huge disaster. We're already seeing it to a degree in some places. Like I just read an article recently, talked about how 2 lawyers on both sides of a trial were thrown out because they used AI to generate all their material, which is like, first of all, lazy, but also, what are you thinking? Like, you know. And I've run across at my work. There's a. I'm not going to say too much, but there's a. This is not just my work, but there's a thing going on where I've seen where I know a lot of developers. What is that over there? What's that yellow stuff? Is that terracotta? No, it's cactus? I can't tell. So vibe coding, if you don't know, is basically where they take a developer, they have them do an AI prompt, the AI generates the code, and the developer uses that code. I'm highly against this. I think it's lazy, I think it's stupid, and there's no way. I mean, a developer's job is to write scalable, maintainable code. I'm not going to get too dorky here, but it's true, right? You need to write scalable, maintainable code. And that is not the code that vibe coding produces. And there's so many people who are using vibe coding who write code. The code doesn't do what it's supposed to at huge levels, at levels I've never seen before. And they're scratching their heads going, gee, I don't understand why we're having all these defects in our codes. It's a mystery. You know, it's a mystery. But the other side too is I see online, I'll see somebody on I was watching Gab Smulders, who's a marvelous streamer and I really, really like her take on a lot of things. And she was, whoops, come here. Okay. She was on stream. She talked about she doesn't play games that on Steam they say they use AI, and I appreciate that. I absolutely appreciate that stance. I think that I respect her for that. But so many, I've heard so many people in her chat, in her Twitch chat, say, you know, somebody was trying to say, well, the thing is, not all AI is bad. Like this, like the cancer thing, you know, and predicting protein sequences, and I mean, this AI is doing all kinds of really stuff that's really helpful to humankind in the world. You know, the protein sequences has like, imagine that we could have a single-use plastic that not only isn't harmful for the environment, but actually really good for it. That's the potential of what this could do. Like, it's incredible. And these people refuse to accept it because their only view of AI is ChatGPT, which is hot garbage. So, I also holy crap. Wow. I didn't like that. Yeah. Can we sleep through the thunderstorm? Let's do it. I don't like that at all. Jeez. Let's put our bed down and go to sleep quickly before we're struck by lightning. Yeah. Okay. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Hold it. Stay there. Okay. And so I find for me, there's a big push at my work to use AI, and I think it's silly and stupid. I do. And I can say that because hardly anyone from my work follows me, so it's fine. It don't matter. I'm allowed to have opinions. And I think that like I said, there's this push to use AI, but I feel like it's because there's people at a very high level who don't understand what that means and want to keep up with the Joneses, right? All these businesses use AI, so we use AI. But like, I find that the only time I really use it, and it's super effective, is like when I know there's a colleague of mine who did some paper or did something like 2 years ago. And I just remember that I feel like this is going to be helpful to what I'm working on now, right? But I don't know where that is. How would I know where that is? Like, you can start trolling through the server, but good splorg. And of course, this doesn't remember what it was because it was 2 years ago. Like, how are they supposed to know? What the heck? Is this a broken... I've kind of seen this before. Where they're buried. It's so weird. Oh, look, we found it right away. Obsidian, sure. Yeah, we'll shove that in there. Why not? This is gold boots. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I don't care about any of this. Alright, cool. Those buried ones are so weird. And that's a very unsexy use of AI. It's not nearly as effective as some headline about some stupid developer saying, "Hey, I'm sentient because I had a conversation with it about Lord of the Rings lore or something." Like, oh, come on. But it's hugely time saving. And I don't think it's just me, right? I could spend hours looking for different documents that I need to find or different files I need to find, and it just finds them, right? 87% of the time, it finds them immediately and gets them to me. Like, and I can get it. It's exactly what I'm looking for. That's an incredibly boring but phenomenally useful use of AI. And I feel like if we leaned into that, I don't think we need a large language model. I don't think we'd need an AI that's sucking up all the resources that a lot of these large language models are. I mean, my view after having used this for a little bit is, because kind of mandated it at work, is my view is I don't think we need to stick with the traditional paradigm in at least on servers, but in computers either, of like we have folders and files, and that feels like an approach before we understood exactly what computers were capable of. So we had to use this. Well, this is what we do now. What's going on? Okay. This is what we do now. We have look at like movies from the 60s and stuff. We have file folders and we put files in them, and each file has a bunch of documents in it. And it's like, you can see why they do that. But I feel like AI is so good at categorizing things. And again, I'm not talking about large language models. I'm just talking about AI in general, is good at categorizing, storing things, and retrieving things. And I kind of don't think that we need to do that manually anymore. But as I say that, the thing that concerns me is this another skill where that doesn't seem like a big deal, but really make sure our brains still work the way that they're supposed to work, like I read this really fascinating story. I'm going off on a tangent here, but this was going to be a rambly one anyway, so strap in. But I read that California is requiring teaching cursive handwriting in schools, and that's fine. I don't have a dog in that race either way, frankly. But the thing I think that's interesting about it is it was prompted by several studies that have indicated that people who aren't taught cursive writing at a young age lack fine motor skills. That's super interesting. Like they lack a lot of fine motor skills that people their age who do learn cursive handwriting have. I think that's absolutely, utterly fascinating. And it makes you start thinking, again, same thing as the not learning to inspire yourself. What the splurp is this? Oh, is this a mangrove thing? I don't think I've ever seen one before. Neat. Wow. That's cool. Let's go under, I guess. That's neat. What biome is this called? Snowy Falls biome. Minecraft mangrove swamp. Mangrove swamp. Oh, beast blood. I've never seen one before. It's really neat. That's cool. Whoops. But it makes me think that, is that, again, another one of those things? Like, I think we have to balance it. I lean towards, I just feel like Don Norman's solution to using AI and not giving up his own strengths is so inspiring to me. And I feel like we can learn so much from that, We could just learn, what is the deal with, is that ships? No, that's not. I'm sorry. I was going to say, what's the deal with ships? But well, no, it is a ship. How many ships are there? Jeez. I'm not going to all these because, on these exploring Minecraft things, let me tell you, the amount of stuff we take with us is slim because we don't have a base. We're not dropping stuff off. We're just taking everything we own comes with us. So that's why I'm a little less concerned, because in this world I did turn on that you start with the same stuff you had. I think is that a rune portal? We'll go there. Okay. Yeah, it is. I see the chest there. We'll stop here, go down, and get it. Stop. Go up. Go up. Stop. What are you doing? Sure, we'll take this. I don't really need a golden apple, so that's fine. I don't care. Go up. Okay. There. And I'm rethinking about how we're using AI and all these things, and I really feel like that if we always implement it with that idea, that we're using this as this clever thing, I think that's an okay use of it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not trained nearly like, if it's not a large language model, it's just an AI model. It's trained on a lot of data, but it's not nearly the level of computational power that a large language model and generative AI requires. Like all these massive data centers that are going up all over the country at this moment, that's generative AI. That's ChatGPT. That is not that really cool model that increases the doctor's efficiency of predicting breast cancer by 80%. What is that? Huh. Is that another rune portal? It is. That's a weird one, too. I don't understand what those bubbles are. I don't like it. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Stop. 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 My gosh, stop. Oh, what? Oh, it's got it. It's swimming over those stupid things because they make you go down. That's how they make elevators. Okay. I understand. Stop. I get it now. I'm so stupid. I was wondering why I did that. Now I know. So, getting off the AI subject, I highly recommend you set yourself, and it doesn't have to be once a day. That's really difficult to do something creative, something you really enjoy. Pick something that you really, really enjoy. Maybe it's creating something in Minecraft. You know, maybe it's just creating a small little building, and just say to yourself, I'm going to do every single week. I'm going to spend 1 hour, and I'm going to make a building in Minecraft. Or I'm going to spend 2 hours and make a building in Minecraft, and I can break it up as much as I want in any way I want. But I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that 52 times this year. I'm going to do it once a week, every single week. I'm going to spend a couple hours, and I'm going to make something special in a brand new world. And I bet that if you say you're going to make a single building, right? It has to don't keep adding to something else. Is that another rune portal? Kind of looks like it. Don't keep adding to something else. Create something that new. I think that's crucial, right? There it is. Let's go look. Do something that new. Don't. I can't tell if that's a rune portal or not. It might not be. Do something new. You know, do something new every single week. It is. Okay. Stop. We'll go down. Where is it? Where is it? Up. Where is it? I don't see it. I'm not seeing it. Oh well, whatever. I'm lazy. Where's my boat? I don't care. Where are we going? This way? This way. Yes. Do something that new. Just create a little building in Minecraft, and I would bet that by the end of the year you will see a marked improvement in your ability to come up with interesting creative stuff on the fly. And if you don't do that, write something. You know? Literally just write something. Once a day. Or whatever you want. Maybe you love cooking. Maybe you love cooking new dishes. Come up with a new recipe once a week. Whatever currently you really enjoy doing. What inspires you when you get inspiration, do it. Do it once a week. Do it on a regular basis. Do it for a full year. And I think you'll find that not only does it increase your ability to inspire yourself, right, and to create interesting things, I think you'll find that it also is going to change other aspects of your life. And this is something I noticed when I started learning how to do this when I was a musician, that you start realizing that there's other aspects of your life that this has a super positive influence on. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's important. Everything we do, you know, we have neurons and transmitters in our brain that go across like telegraphs, you know, like the old school telegraphs in the Western, and send these things. But unlike the telegraphs, every single bit of gray matter that goes across is affected by it. Neuroplasticity. And I think if you start to do that, you're going to start to see some real positive changes in your life. And I do think that's a pretty good place to end this video. Thank you so much for tagging along with me and exploring Minecraft, where I just talk about something. Today, our topic was inspiration, how to do it, some of the dangers around it. I think you should try it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for more exploring Minecraft. See you next time.